his circle got very, very close. And apart from children of his allies or his own relatives, we've also seen him elevating people who are not just close to him family wise, but sort of have been close to his physical body, including bodyguards. This doesn't only affect Putin's family, but also families of other top Russian officials. I would very much warn everyone against talking about, succession or him grooming a potential successor. But it comes at a time when, despite the fact that Russia is in the middle of a war, and obviously it's a crisis situation for every country, we're not seeing him promoting his children for top jobs, but there's definitely more visibility for his daughters, for example. And this one particular story is something that I wrote for the Times last week. This is his niece. He has not acknowledged their family ties, but this is fairly common knowledge. There's a lot of open data about the fact that they are definitely related. And she's someone who was appointed a deputy defense minister earlier this summer, and now she's been promoted further. There's this idea that as he's getting older, he's less prone to picking up new people, so he has to sort of select within the pool of his closest allies and children of his closest allies, or in this case someone who is related to him, who is more or less of on the sidelines. But we're definitely seeing promotion. We've been seeing promotions like that lately. I would say one of the reasons why I should be very careful about like calling this major trend is the fact that those family ties are not advertised. For example, when this woman Anna Sivilova was appointed deputy defense minister, neither the Kremlin nor the defense minister pay any attention to those family links. It was not acknowledged. She was not portrayed on TV as someone who's related to Putin. And the same goes to his daughters, who recently they've been taking a greater public role in their own scientific think tanks, organizations where they work, where they're promoted as those like very smart and bright women, but those public links are not advertised. And this is a biggest indication that the Kremlin is sort of self-conscious about promoting those people, right? About advertising those ties. On the other hand, obviously, everyone in the elite, they all know who these women are. And again, they have not been promoted to the top jobs. They have not been promoted to someone at the ministerial level, or let alone the prime minister. So I think this has been managed so far. And again, when you talk about former KGB cronies and the elites, this is a vertical system. So however unhappy they are, what we see so far is Putin has been able to control all of it, and like whatever disillusionment that is going on, like he's been able to manage it so far. Soviet leaders like Joseph Stalin, for example, they prided themselves on the fact that their children are not getting cushy jobs. For example, both of Stalin's children served in the army during the war. One was famously taken prisoner. The other was also fighting on the front lines. So they were very much this idea against, the elitism. And the same went for Soviet leaders who followed them. Their children definitely had the privilege of being related to who they were related, but they were never found in top jobs. And there was this idea that it was something to be frowned upon. And this is something that we didn't see in the Putin system in the past 20 years. So we knew that all of those children of his top allies and people in the top positions, they were well off. There was this idea of them being successful, I would say, private businessmen. They would often land lucrative government contracts, which obviously would give rise to discussion of corruption and nepotism. But there was this idea that it was not on to put them in those top jobs. So this is definitely something that is changing right now. And I would say that this is something that began to change with the start of the war in Ukraine. He's not doing it openly for the public, so people in the know, they know that these women are related to him, right? But general public is not aware of that at all. One funny thing about Anna Sivilova, the new deputy defense minister, who is Putin's niece, is someone I spoke to recently. This very prominent Russia analyst, when she did a YouTube program about this appointment, she actually got quite a number of online bots who flooded her comments with the same message, sort of addressing what I guess would be a concern about nepotism there. And the bots were trying to promote 2 points. Point number one was, she's not a random woman. She's someone who's dealt with social issues before, and she's going to be handling social issues at the defense ministry. And second, she's related to Putin, but she's a very distant relative, so that link doesn't really matter. So it just shows you that yes, there's definitely concern in the Kremlin that people are going to think that there's a nepotism. But again, if you get your news from state TV, you're not going to have any idea who those women are anyway. Yeah, I mean, even before the war, he was getting increasingly isolated. And I guess it all started with COVID, when he famously self isolated himself in the Kremlin. And sort of 2 years into the pandemic, he wouldn't shake people's hands. He would only meet someone if they themselves had self isolated for 2 weeks, or if they've been rigorously tested for COVID. So it started with that his circle got very very close, and apart from children of his allies or his own relatives, we've also seen him elevating people who are not just close to him family wise, but sort of have been close to his physical body, including bodyguards. For example, there was this recent appointment of a former bodyguard who was a governor just outside Moscow, and he was recently promoted to sort of had the efforts to drive the Ukrainian army from Kursk, which obviously is a very sensitive issue, because this is the first time we have foreign forces on Russian soil since the end of the Second World War. And yeah, you can see that this is a very sensitive task, and he would obviously want to entrust it with someone who he has a lot of trust with, including this deputy. Duman is the name. And not just the incursion of Kursk, but the Wagner mutiny, the mutiny of his former warlord and confidant, to whom he previously outsourced a lot of war in Ukraine, even before the full scale of invasion. He definitely saw it as a betrayal of someone he trusted a lot. So what we're just seeing sort of like recycling of the same people. We're not seeing much of a new blood. For example, if we go back to the defense ministry, the person who succeeded his long-term ally, former minister Sergei Shoigu, is someone is a former economic advisor who's been working for him for a long time. So it's sort of about recycling the same old cadre of people all over again, just plucking them from one seat and putting them into another. It pains me to say that, but right now Belarus is not a fully independent country, as we've been seeing since 2020, when the Kremlin threw its weight behind Alexander Lukashenko and basically helped him to secure a re-election in Belarus, despite overwhelming nationwide protests which were about to topple him. Belarus sort of became a vassal of Russia. We see that. There's nothing going on in Belarus without the Kremlin's explicit or implicit orders. And as we saw at the start of the invasion, Belarus served as a springboard for the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. This is how Russian troops were able to get closer to Kiev, because they were pouring in from the north, from the northern Ukrainian border, from Belarus. And this is where they've been seeing troops amassing again. It started with the Belarusian president telling Ukraine off for amassing troops on its side of the border. So Lukashenko is now playing the victim and saying that, there's a threat to our border, so we're going to move troops closer to that. I would say this is not surprising, considering the ongoing Ukrainian incursion into Kursk. Belarus is a Russian puppet as we know it, and this is definitely some sort of a threat that Russia is brandishing out there, sort of showing to Kiev that if we wanted to invade the Kiev region again, if we wanted to get somewhat close to Kiev again, we will do it, because for most of the war, I would say, after Russian forces pulled back from the Kiev region in spring 2022, there was hardly any threat to Ukraine from the Belarusian border. So with this, Russia is basically showing to Ukraine that we could start doing it again, and you're going to have another front, unless you pull back from Kursk, or unless you step down and whatever you say. We have seen stories of defections in the Russian forces, not a lot of them to Ukraine. There was this daring escape of a fighter jet pilot who famously hijacked his plane into Ukraine, I believe, in 2023. This one is a member of paratroopers, if I'm not mistaken. He apparently coordinated his defection with Ukrainian forces, so he knew where he was going after that and where he was what he was doing. He filmed himself throwing a grenade um, into the barracks he was stationed at. I believe it was a basement of some sort. So there's quite an extraordinary video making rounds, a video that shows an explosion of that grenade thrown into the quarters of his commanders. After that, he apparently was able to cross the border into Ukraine. The Ukrainian officials were able to coordinate an escape route with him, and he resurfaced in Kiev last week and gave a press conference and said that he was very much disillusioned. He's not a conscript. He's a professional soldier. He's someone who's been serving in an army for a while, and as he says, that he didn't go to the army to do just that. He went. He joined the armed forces to defend his country from someone, and as he saw, the Russian army was actually attacking in another country, and this is not something he signed up for. So he was able to defect. I would say my main concern here is his own personal safety, because as some of our readers might remember, that Russian pilot who hijacked the plane into Ukraine, his case was very much publicized in Ukraine and abroad. He was offered an asylum in Spain after that, and a couple of months later, he was found dead in a Spanish home. So definitely, I would have a lot of security concerns for that man, because it looks like Russia would be targeting those people. And as we know, Vladimir Putin, he has a thing about treason and traitors. So for him, in a way, this is this cardinal sin, and he would like to see the government to go after those people to show an example that these are the consequences for you if you decide to do that. Look, I mean, defections are happening. They're just not that publicized. And if I were a Russian soldier, I would rather want to do it quietly away from the camera, so that I wouldn't repeat the fate of that Russian pilot who ended up killed in Spain. There's this one Russian charity that has actually been helping Russian soldiers to defect from all over the country, and they are using very creative routes. Some of them lead to Baltic states across northwestern Russia, so it's not that straightforward. Those defections are few. I think we were talking about dozens. I would say a couple of dozens a month from what I've been hearing. But it's been happening, and I would say one of the concerns is communications, because the Russian state is trying to make an example of the defectors that it catches. There's a lot of news going around in Russian media about Russian police catching men who are trying to join the Ukrainian army, who are trying to join Russian fighters fighting alongside Ukraine. And those people are getting caught. They are filmed, they are put on trial, and all of those trials are highly publicized, explicitly with the aim to ward off those defections as much as they can.